and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Real Men of Real Estate, hosted by me, Thomas F Chappell Jr. of the Black Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club. Today we have a guest from up north in the Bay Area, California. His name is Ryan O'Connell, and he's here to talk about ADUs and the reason why ADUs are so effective here in California. So Ryan, I would like for you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the public and let them know who you are and where you from.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. My name is Ryan, and I'm obsessed with accessory dwelling units and housing and all these kind of house hacks that are available to us now in California. And so I do a lot of content on like YouTube and TikTok to help homeowners kind of learn the ABCs of what they can do before they go out to find professionals like architects and builders to figure out how they can maximize the value of their property or create a little extra space for themselves or a family member, create some housing, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so what have you done before you got into the ADU game?
That's it. Well, ADUs were my foot in the door for housing because I'm a wine guy. I live up in Napa,
Okay.
so North Bay area. And I moved to California in 2012 to start a company called Naked Wines. And I'm a wine guy originally. And so ADUs are something that caught my attention and kind of fascinated me because they are a cool way to create more housing in the Bay Area, which is something we desperately needed. As an employer, I was like, man, all of my teammates or all of my team members are moving farther and farther away because they can't afford to live in Napa anymore. And the more I looked at it, the more I was like, we just need more housing. We need to figure out a solution here. And ADUs seemed like a perfect way into that world for me.
Okay. So, understanding now that you're the guru of ADUs and you done took over the YouTube scene and, like you said, the TikTok, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I like telling stories. That was my job at the wine business too. And so when I sat down to start doing accessory dwelling unit stuff, I started by talking to homeowners and seeing what needs existed, where there were gaps that I could help create value and help people learn. And the YouTube thing just came kind of naturally as we were, well, it was March 2020, so we started shutting down. And I had all these Zoom recordings, and I thought, well, let me throw them on YouTube and kind of tell the story there of how I'm launching this business. And little by little, the YouTube channel just kept growing and gaining momentum, and people were calling me and thanking me for the information in the channel. And so I thought, well, why am I fighting so hard to do these other parts of the business? I'm getting the most appreciation and validation for doing the storytelling online.
Right.
So I just leaned in and started doing more and more of it, and I'm really grateful that that's actually it's a full-time gig now where I can spend my whole day just kind of concentrating the news that people need to hear about ADUs and the changing landscape, and what companies are out there that are there to help you with your accessory dwelling unit, and what changes there are in the law. I'm very grateful that can be my whole role now.
So, how many followers do you have on YouTube and TikTok?
Yeah, between everything, it's probably like 75,000 now. TikTok's huge. It's got like 50,000 people follow there. And then you put up a video and maybe it's going to be seen by 200,000 people the next day. You just never know. And people think it's all like kids on TikTok, and that's just not true. A lot of people are on that platform. And based on the DMs that I get, you'd be surprised at how senior like politicians at the state level are watching
really?
TikTok, which is a little worrisome. Maybe they should get back to work. But you got politicians, you got lenders, you got big time realtors and developers. They're all on the platform. They're watching. So like 50,000 on TikTok, and then like 6,000 on YouTube. There's a Facebook group if you're into Facebook groups. That's got about 17,000 people in it, and all that's free. So it's all free information that's there to help you navigate the space.
So my question here is, what type of content are you bringing that people are willing to listen to you versus listening to someone else?
Sure. Well, it varies a lot, but like my whole thing is that because I'm not a housing expert, because I haven't been building for like decades, it's all new to me. And so I talk kind of like a normal person about a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
And it helps really break it down and simplify what can otherwise be really complicated issues. This past week, we've been doing a lot of news about a $40,000 grant that the state made available, and some of the big breakthroughs that have happened just in the past month to make that easier to get that money. And you talk about $40,000 of free money from the state, and you get a lot of people's attention. If you if you know what I mean.
True, true, true. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
You're saying that the state is giving out 40,000. I mean, I know quite naturally a lot of people are going to be wondering how do they go by getting it? What does it consist of, and things of that nature. So let's go into that.
Yeah, sure. So it's the state put up a total of $100 million for ADU grants, and that money's supposed to go through Cal HFA, which is the same organization that does a lot of the first-time homebuyer loans that people
Correct.
are more familiar with. And that just seemed like the fastest way to deploy the cash, right? Sometimes they just say, "Hey, here's the money. You figure it out, Cal HFA," and that happened last September. And in the first sort of 10 months of the program, very few grants actually got distributed because there were a lot of obstacles, and they were trying to figure out all the details. But every couple months there'd be a new round of changes and a new round of updates about how you could actually access the grant. They increased the grant value from 25,000 to 40,000. They removed some of the income eligibility requirements to be more reflective of today's economic reality. And most recently, they went from a very narrow set of lenders who could qualify you for the grant to a group of nonprofits and entities like cities that can qualify you for the grant. And that's been a huge change. So basically, every couple months is a change. But just last month, it went from being really complicated to get to, like, you usually needed a construction loan, you usually needed to refinance your primary mortgage. Now all of a sudden, sky's the limit. There's a lot of different lending opportunities, and I imagine they'll actually run out of money pretty shortly. Like, they'll probably go through the 100 million in the next kind of 3 to 4 months, if my math's right.
Okay, so here's a question I want to ask. For those who do not understand or not saying they've lived up on the rock and didn't know what an ADU is, what is an ADU? Explain that, please.
Yeah, of course. Go back to the basics. So ADU is a really weird, esoteric California West Coast term. It's just a house in your backyard, or it's converting part of your existing house into an apartment. And it stands for accessory dwelling unit. The A, accessory, means that it can't be the only thing on the house. It's not an independent home. It's an accessory to your primary house. The D stands for dwelling, means you can live there. It means it has to be, air conditioned and plumbed. It can't just be, a tough shed in the backyard.
Right.
And the U means it's a unit. It's independent, and so you can rent it out. It can have its own living quarters. It's completely independent.
Okay, so with that in mind, would it benefit a lot of people to have one of these? Because some people might not want to have a stranger in their backyard. So what
Yeah.
would convince them to want to put an ADU in their backyard?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The first thing I'd say is 80% of the people I'm working with and who watch the channel are building it for themselves or a family member or
Okay.
somebody they know. So that's a big use case. The other thing is there's no owner occupancy requirement at the moment. That part of the law sunsets in a few years. So you've got a unique window of opportunity right now where even if it's an investment property, you could just build a second unit in the backyard. So it's not necessarily your backyard.
Okay.
And the third is what you're actually asking me about. Is it ever worth putting a stranger in your backyard? I think it really depends on the property and the context and your lifestyle. So I talk to a lot of people who live in urban areas. If you're living in Oakland or Berkeley, you're kind of already used to having neighbors right up against your property line. So having one extra unit in the backyard, if it's got its own entrance, it's not the end of the world. in your head, the rental income might justify that.
Yeah, good.
Alternatively, if you've got a big rural lot, then maybe, or a corner lot, you could create a lot of independence there, and you might never feel like you've got somebody in your backyard. Having said that, there's a lot of houses that I look at and I listen to the person talk to me about what they're trying to accomplish, and I say, are you really ready to have a complete stranger, a tenant who you have this landlord-tenant relationship with, living in your backyard? Because it can be, a lot of energy. It can be very consuming.
No, that's true though. I mean, because you got people right now that just like say for you just moved into a neighborhood and you have a neighbor on your left, you have a neighbor on your right, you really don't know them, you have a neighbor across the street, and now that you have an opportunity to be able to uh, make some money and add it to your mortgage where you don't have to come out of pocket, it makes a lot of sense and
Hmm.
what have you. So I if I'm not mistaken, I do think there's 3 states that are doing ADUs at this moment.
Hmm.
Do you know the 3 states?
Yeah, sure. So Oregon and Washington have made big strides in starting usually with their metros, and so like Portland and Seattle made big leaps and bounds, and then Oregon is actually pretty much statewide with a lot of the laws now. California has been statewide the whole time, and it's a large state, so that's most of my focus. And already you're seeing the White House is picking up a lot of talking points around accessory dwelling units and zoning reform,
Okay.
and you're getting other major metro areas adopting ADU policies. So you might, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing more and more citywide ordinances in places like Austin, Texas, in places like Minnesota, in a couple cities in Florida are starting to adopt policies, and that's exciting because basically you get most of the juice just out of the major metro areas. It's lovely when it's statewide because it streamlines things and it makes it easier to educate and
Right.
inform. But the most of the housing gets created in those urban environments anyway, because there's less sprawl.
I think it would be very beneficial for most homeowners to be able to rent these units out to like college students,
Hmm.
things like
Yeah,
that.
it's great for seasonal rentals. Like I said, I live up in wine country, right?
Right.
And we have a very seasonal kind of economic environment where you're not supposed to use ADUs as short-term rentals in California. It's part of the state rules, so it has to be 30 days or more.
Right.
But you get a lot of seasonal labor, people who come up to work hospitality, people who come up to work ag, and then you've got visitors who are long-term visitors, like whether they're here for the season because it's a nice winter in California or something like that. There's a lot of opportunity, absolutely. And then in other cities with big UCs or anything like that, absolutely, student housing is a huge opportunity. Hmm.
Yes, I see that, and come to understand that there's different people are starting to build here in California, build communities outside of putting it into your backyard and things of that nature, to where it benefits students all over the world,
Hmm.
and I'm liking what's going on. I really do
Yeah.
liking what's going on. But we're going to take a commercial break, and when we get back with our guests, we're going to get into the SB 9 and SB 10. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Real Men of Real Estate, hosted by myself. We'll be right back after this commercial break.